This presentation which I am going to give you today is actually a prelude to what Dr. Shaji would be speaking to you in the afternoon. Many of you from the universities end, there are people from the department and there are people from outside the campus as well. Now this is more related to the people inside the campus. And affiliated people from affiliated colleges can also make use of this because for the next 10 years anyways the affiliation will go strong. So I think it is only after 10 years then many of the organizations that are currently affiliated with the university will move out to be independent. So the next 10 years affiliation is still strong. So when I am speaking to you about Translational Research Center, it is not something within the campus. It can also be exploited by the colleges which are affiliated to the University of Kerala. So today what I am going to speak to you about is the role of the role of the translation. Am I audible? The role of the Translational Research Center in the what I'm going to talk to you about is the role of the Translational Research Center in the university. Now, role of Translational Research Center in the university, the first question that is going to come into your mind is, does all the university have Translational Research Center? No. But in 2022, our state government had decided to set up translational research centers across the state universities in Kerala together. So almost I think 7 or 8 state universities in Kerala have applied. In the first phase, 2 universities under the higher education ministry, that is the University of Kerala and TRIC-KU, they have kick-started their translational research centers in the university. So in the other state universities, the translation research centers are also functional. But when I say 2 universities have started, means infrastructure wise they will be getting the funding to start the translation research center. Next slide please. So before I move into the role of the Translation Research Center, I just want to ask you a question. You have come across this terminology, translational research, and how it is related to patents. So you are seeing the Translation Research Center, and inside the Translation Research Center there is the IPR cell, and then now you are here to know more about patents. How are these connected? What is translational research? Can anybody tell me what is translation research? And are you in any ways connected to translation research? Anybody? Needu, how about you? What is translation research? Lab to somewhere. So you feel like lab is not enough. Yeah. So lab is not enough. So it's actually a process of producing meaningful, applicable results that directly benefit human population. So you will be wondering, that's what we are doing, right? Yes, that is exactly what you're doing. But then you are just, on the basic level of it. Okay. So from the basic level, you have to actually push your research a little bit more further. If you push it, then we can actually call it the translational research. Now the diagram, I know it's a little bit teeny over here, the ones in the back cannot actually see it. But I'll just tell you a small, what you can say, a cycle that is involved. One is you come up with an idea. So all the researchers would be having an idea, that's for sure. Now with the idea, what do you do with an idea? We have an idea, is it not correct? We do have an idea. Now when we have to tell the idea to another person, say for example, you feel that your idea is kind of novel or it has got a utility. What do you have to do to it? You have to define it. So once you have the idea, okay, and whenever we have ideas, the ideas should not be for obtaining a PhD degree, which most of us, even during my time also, I used to think about it that way, but then slightly we will have to move out of that cocoon and we will have to say that the idea is for a purpose. Now when we have an idea, first we have to do is that we have to define the idea, right? You need to actually make a means you have to give it an image, right? So the idea you have to define it, and once you have defined it, then the next objective is to test it, right? So we do the pilot studies. We see whether it is working or not. So whenever if you would have actually in your own laboratories or under your own mentors, you would have actually come across that thought process where your mentor tells you, let's test it first, right? Let's test it first and see whether we are coming up with a result or not. Then we will actually think about, making it or go further. So what you do is that you test it. And once you test it and then when you see that you have got a result, then what do? Then you further elaborate it, right? Then you actually close all the loopholes that is associated with it, and then you actually say that you have the data, right? And then you repeat the data many times and then you say that this is a solid data that I have got. Now here you are, this phase everybody is familiar with, right? Now from this phase we move a little bit more further into converting whatever you have got into a prototype. Okay, so the people who are in the science departments, they'll be very easy for them to relate to, means most of the time it gets converted to a product. You have something with you, or you have actually looked into the mechanism of something and then you have understood that this is the way this thing functions. So there you either have a process that is involved or you have a product, okay, that you have tested. The same applies to the ones in the commerce department, the same applies to the ones in the social science department as well. Because there also you are looking for processes, okay, which are like new. Alright, so these processes you will have to take it to the next level. You have to define it a little bit more further that the layman also understands it. Because half the time whenever we speak our language, higher order language we say, the layman will not understand it. So we will have to actually go up higher, but at the same time make the layman understand what we are talking about. So once you do that, then you will be able to develop a prototype of it. So a prototype in the form, either it in the form of a product or in the process, you can say it is in the prototype form. Once it is in the prototype form, this is where the trouble starts. Because you will be moving out of your lab as a student. The faculty will be losing you in the process because you have decided to move on. So that's where the work comes stuck. So this is where you have to put a little bit more mind to it. Mind to it in the sense is that you will have to stay connected to the place that you have actually started off with. Not just like one fine day you just abandon your whole lab or the mentor that you're working in and move into a new place. That cannot be possible when it comes to translation process. So it is always important that you stay connected with your base. And what you do is that you actually fill in the gaps. How do you fill in the gaps? Because there your mentor or your laboratory would be bringing up this into a higher order. When it is moving in the higher order, that is where you have to intellectually give the inputs. There you don't have to work. Because if the mentor wants to take this work further, then he or she has to acquire some more funds in order to further develop it. So this is also the place where you have to get connected. So networking helps over here. You will have to get connected, or your mentor has to get connected to other people. And who are these other people? One is the funding agency involved. Second thing is that whatever we have worked with, it is at the laboratory scale. Okay, and the laboratory there are limitations, right? We cannot actually call it a finished product from the lab. So what do? We actually work with people who know how to take this further. So there are firms, there are industries around us, and so we connect with them. This is also the phase where we feel a lot of inhibition. You normally have a tendency to think that this is not possible for us. This is not our cup of tea. That, let me tell you, it is just an inhibition in your mind. All you have to do is then pick it up and throw it out. Okay, because you have to get rid of that inhibition phase, and then you will have to connect with the firms that are there. And once you connect with the firms, then they will actually share their experience. This is the time frame where you will be requiring a patent. Okay, because to get the industries to like your stuff or get involved into it, you will have to have something novel, right? So whatever novel that you have, whatever is the utility thing that you have, or whatever Sakshi was talking to about, or what in the subsequent sessions, what Nisha or Parul will be talking to you about, is the non-obviousness part. Non-obviousness part is a little bit tricky. Means A plus B is equal to, if you say that it is always C, then it is going to be very difficult. You combine two things, like say for example, Sakshi was talking to about, like a mobile phone and a camera put together. You combine it, maybe there is a possibility. Okay, so in that case, a non-obvious nature should also be there in your, what you can say, in your process or in your product, that will not actually overlap with anybody else's invention. Okay, so if it overlaps, then the process is referred to as infringement. So one has to actually work up in that way, and that's when you file the patent. Now when you file the patent, you can always file a patent. Okay. Sitting at home or you can making use of the services that are available in translation research centers such as TRIC, you can always file a patent. Now when you file a patent, you are actually locking your. At the same time, now Parveen would be further advancing to you on few other aspects that once the filing is done and once, say for example, you have acquired a patent, you can further even modify your own patent and then later on locking your claims even further. Is it not further? Yeah. So that is also process. Now when the industry comes in, now maintaining the patent or filing the patent or whatever the case may be, they all require a lot of funding. Not right. Now you or the organization that you are going to work with will not be able to, a patent can be maintained for 10, 20 years old. Okay, after it is in the public domain. So you or your organization who is going to work on it will not have that much amount of funding in order to take this patenting process further. Means you have got the patent, but the maintenance of the patent also comes with the cost. So that is not possible, and besides yours is always locked in the organization, just like this is on the shelf. It is going nowhere. So you will have to transfer your what you can say your patent, or you have to license it out to the organization. They are going to work with you. Sometime later they will become part of the patent. If you are applying it together, they become a co-applicant. Or otherwise, what happens is that you are transferring it to them. And when you are transferring to them, intellectually you are serving them. Okay, and this is where all the monetary benefits that Dr. Gopchandran sir was talking to about, all of them kick-starts at this particular phase, where they take in and then they give you some form of a revenue, or the organization would have certain percentages to share with you. That will come in the maybe in the subsequent workshops we will be discussing it. But in this workshop, what we will be telling you is that you and the organization that you are working in will definitely have a share in that. And then you have the patent, you have the industrial partner with you, and then you further develop the product, and they are good in the finishing business, and then they would actually, so here from designing to branding and then protecting it, and then further on in order to manufacture it. So the product that we are talking to about, they will not be able to finish it off and then say that this is the product in maybe 1 day's time. That will also take subsequent what you can say many months or perhaps years, and once the product is final, then only it comes into the market. Okay, tried and tested, and then it goes to the market. And this is how whatever is there in your thesis or in a publication, you actually lock it prior, and then you actually make it more useful to the society. And at the same time, there is a remuneration also that is there important. Now what makes, so when you Google it out, translation research, you will come across terminologies like T0, T1, T2, T3, etc. These are all more related to biology. Because when you speak about translation research is more related to biological sciences than to material sciences or any other subjects. So here what we do is that in vitro testing that we do are mostly referred to as preclinical works, and from the animal studies to human studies, and then once you are done with the human studies, we move to testing it in patients, and then from there to testing it in a population, and once everything is there and all the FDA approvals are obtained, then only you will end up with what you can refer to as drugs. So this is for those who are working in the life science stream. And ours, T0, T1, T2, T3, T4, this slide I will share it in the group. We are, at the university level, we are only in T0. We have miles to go because T0 is the laboratory scale of work. And T1 is the first in phase 1 human trials with humans. Okay, so you have to have the ethical clearance. We have those kind of machineries and all in the university as well in order to test it if you want to. And then once it is tested in the humans, the toxicity studies are all done. Then only we can move to patient level. At the patient level, you call it T2. And from there, you actually go, once that is also done and all the tests, there is a list of tests to be done. And once everything is being done, then only we move into phase 4, which is marketing and post-approval trials. And from there, we move to, that is T3, and from there we move to T4, which is monitoring treatments. At the global level, say for example, paracetamol, a drug like paracetamol can actually work with many people, right? But then there are certain drugs which only certain patients can use. Say for example, a patient is suffering from dengue, advanced stages of dengue, steroid, and the patient is diabetic. The steroids cannot be actually applicable over there. So there are certain cases where all the drugs, a universal drug will not be applicable to everyone under different circumstances the body goes through. Next slide. So what is a university-based translation research center? In a translation research center, what are what you can say a perfect translation center, research center is supposed to do is that they are supposed to accelerate scientific progress. Meaning, a translation research center serving the university should have an idea about all the different types of work that is being done by the faculty members. If it is in a research institute, by all the scientists done over there. Promote interdisciplinary collaboration, and by interdisciplinary research does not actually mean that the person who is working in biochemistry would actually look into or look for the help of a bioinformatician and say that that is actually a very good interdisciplinary collaboration. That is not the case. That is something that is quite somewhat related to what I am doing, and they will go hand in hand. They can complement each other. But the interdisciplinary collaboration that we speak about in translation research is actually between scientists, clinicians and engineers. Say for example, you have a medical device. Okay, there are medical devices that are implanted in human beings. Those medical, those implants that we are talking about would have been actually tested by a basic researcher, would have been tested in animal models, and from there it would have gone to an engineer who would have engineered it further. Okay, made it more what you can say palatable to the body, acceptable to the body, more smaller, unique. Again, there is several lines of testing where the basic researcher and the engineer would be working hand in hand. And once the product is almost to the final form, they again test it in the animal models. And then when they see that it is compliant, then only they can actually move it to a human. And so when they move it to a human, there you need the doctor there. So you need the clinician there. So you see how the work is actually going on. So there is a disciplined way of working also. A little bit more open-mindedness people should have. They should have a lot of leadership qualities. Okay, and they should be more patient also while they are doing their piece of work. So then the Translational Research Center should enhance innovation and commercialization, means all the links that you are looking for example the link into the industry, everything actually comes through the Translational Research Center. As of now, in the university we already have the Center for Academic and Industrial Collaboration, but it is working separately. So our next aim is actually to integrate the Center for Academic and Industrial Collaboration with Translational Research Center, so that this would also be perfected in time. Addressing the societal needs. We all do work, we all do a lot of research. But the type of research that we do, is it the most important problem that is being addressed by the state or the country? The state or the country would have certain needs. Okay. So I think yesterday, a few days back when I was at KCST, there was this Dr. Rakhi from NIST. She was actually speaking about research where she was somewhere in Europe, and the investigator that she was working with had moved to Saudi Arabia, and so she also had to shift with him. And then when she went to Saudi Arabia, the what you can say the topic suddenly changed. They were interested in energy. They said you have to work on energy. We brought your principal investigator here to work on energy. Why they wanted to work on energy? Because that land required that particular issue to be cleared. Is it not? So here in this case also, even if government is not pressing us, we have to understand that there are societal issues, and these societal issues are the ones that should be tackled. So the Translational Research Center should always be alert about what are the issues to be tackled by the state. There are certain issues that are unique to the state. Can you name one issue, health issue, that is kind of unique to this particular state than other states? Any health issue that crops up every few years and kind of alarms us a lot? Nipah. Nipah is a. Do you think people in Uttar Pradesh should be working on Nipah, or people in Kashmir should be working on it? No. So there are certain. Say for example, marine plastic pollution. Do you think people in Uttar Pradesh should work on that, or people in Kashmir should work on it, or people in the landlocked regions should work on that? No. It is somewhere that we are in the coastal regions. We have rivers flowing through us, that too in a direction that is like opposing what you can say geography of the land, opposite direction it is going. So those are the issues that affects the stability of the land also. So stability of the land, okay, the pollution of the waters, the air quality. So these are issues which should be given more, and health issues also. And these are the issues which should be given prioritized more. So translational research centers are supposed to identify those critical problems and give those funding for these kind of. Suddenly you notice that the funding has changed. The organizations that you regularly apply to funding for, they have shifted their priorities. They give you a list. And then you say that we don't belong to that list. How come that they are looking into this particular stream? They are looking into, maternity health. I'm not working on maternity health. How did the maternity health come in that first place? There would have been states which would have brought about that issue, and now they are giving funding to researchers so that they can actually further do research in order to improve maternity health. So these are the type of issues. Making research useful for policy and practice. There are so many case studies that are taking place in the university. So many case studies. If you look into some of the thesis, there is case study. If you go to geology, there is a lot of case studies, water bodies. If you go to environmental science, there is a lot of case studies. If you go to sociology, there is a lot of case studies. If you come to aquatic biology, a lot of case studies. But then with all these case studies, what do? It's in the thesis. Okay, so you have understood a problem in the state. You have understood that these are techniques where it can be resolved, but at the same time it is locked in your thesis. So what do? You inform the university authorities or your organization authorities so that they would actually inform the state. The state can further, work on it using better resources and try to find a solution for that. So these are the ways where translation research centers can come in. Okay. Now training the next generation, that I may not actually tell you, that also comes under the purview. Now how do researchers, this is what I was telling you about, how do researchers in translation research decide what to study? Okay, so it's actually a play that is happening. Meaning researchers, community practitioners, engineers, policy makers, what they do is that they do their job separately. They never come together. And depending upon their isolated knowledge and traditional methods. And this creates a gap. Researchers ഒരു സൈഡിലും society വേറെ സൈഡ്. There is no connectivity between the researchers and the society. And translational research centers, in one way, they can actually fill up this lightning. So what is the first step? The first step is practitioners, engineers, community or government agencies, they will inform the researchers that there is a need and we have to provide their real world knowledge. Means they tell them, see, we have this problem. People who are working or identified, say for example Nipah, they tell them that this is the problem, this is the origin, this is how many people have been affected by it, what can be done about it. Step 2, researchers either in R&D institutes or in universities, they can understand and design the problem. Step 3, the researchers will provide evidence-based research. Whatever they are seeing is now substantiated in the form of scientific evidence. And step 4, the community and government agencies, they will receive the update, okay, and then is the evidence-based findings from the researchers, where they will directly convert it into either practice or they will convert it into policy. So this is about integrating practice, research and policy altogether. Next slide please. So what are the objectives of TRIC? In this context, the objectives of TRIC has been outlined. This is for 2025. As we move further, the objectives would change accordingly. So first thing is to promote invention, innovation and entrepreneurship in translation research. Second is to understand the societal needs and promote interdisciplinary research and scientific interactions between various university departments and startups from outside the university. How will startups from outside the university would come into the university? I'll tell you in the subsequent slide. To convert basic data into interventions that can improve the quality of human life. Second is to collaborate with industries to launch cost-effective devices, equipment, medicines, etc. and devise strategies to improve the quality of human life. And the third one is that in doing all these activities, synchronizing many of the players that are there involved, we intend to nourish an ecosystem in the university for preparing technological and product development capabilities. Next slide please. So there are many common paths to commercialization. So we are doing all this research and ultimately it results in a commercial product. Whether you are working on a mask for COVID-19 or you are looking for novel methods to counter Nipah or any kind of, or maybe a marine pollution or whatsoever the case may be, there are your product ultimately or your process. Okay, we have someone from the commerce department who are actually talking about strategies. Okay, so those are process patents. So whenever I say a product, it necessarily does not mean a product alone. It can also mean a process. So what I'm trying to tell you is that ultimately it gets commercialized. Meaning it should be made available to the person. Have you noticed that, say for example, you want to make a transaction. Okay, and then that is a very unique site. Now, unlike Amazon, which would give you a couple of options for payment, there would be certain sites which would give you maybe only one or maybe two options for doing the transaction. And that gateway would be unique. Now, in order to use that gateway to make the transaction, you will be taken a certain amount. Is it not? So, there a new or more secure way has been actually adopted there. Now, in order to introduce that secure way, now that is not exactly a product that is visible. You can't take it in the hand and say that this is the product developed. You are unknowingly using many services, products and processes that have already been commercialized and you are paying for. So it is always important that you identify and then relate to it. Only then you will be able to expand your understanding about what exactly innovation means. So the first common pathway, so an important common pathway to commercialization is patenting. Okay, so when you want to say that I want to commercialize it, then you have to lock it. Otherwise what happens is that you are working without any kind of IP protection, you are making your product better and better and better, and then someone on the other side is looking at your product and making even a better product, and then they will go and patent, and then you will be sitting and looking at them, and that will be a waste of time, seriously. So patenting, then licensing, means universities can license their IP to maybe any existing company for further development and commercialization, or maybe even to transfer. Then there is spin-offs. Spin-off means new companies. Say for example, university is now giving option for these students to initiate startups. Now this year they will be initiating faculty startups. So you will be able to create a company, and then you can take it further. And then there are joint ventures also where the university research is going on, and then the university is collaborating with industry partners in order to commercialize the technologies, or the university faculty has got an understanding about the topic. And then the faculty can actually help in the innovation. How? By actually providing consulting services to companies, leveraging their expertise to solve problems and develop new products. Anyways, all these processes which I am talking to you about is not free of cost. It is not a waste of time. You are actually, creating monetary benefits for yourself in one way or the other if it actually comes to a completion. Next slide please. So what do we do at the university is that inside TRIC, that is the Translational Research Center, we have a cell, and that cell is referred to as the IP cell. Now in the IP cell, I am there, and then Dr. Sibi is also there, who is the IPR coordinator. And what you have to do when you have a process or maybe like a product which you wish to lock. So what you do is that you just send us an email. And once your email is received, then what we have is that we now have an MOU with TRIC-KU. Alright, now the patent agent sent TRIC-KU, and both of us, we would be doing a patent analysis. We will be looking at your process or your product, and this is again an online mediated process. And if it is a student, the student can actually come in with the faculty. Otherwise, faculties directly can apply for it. So what do we do is that we just understand it, and if there is a what do we do? We actually look into your work, and then we see that whether there is a scope for patentability, whether it has got a utility, is it novel, does it have a non-obvious character. So we check into that, and then if it is found suitable, what do we do is that we send this data to the university. We send it to the registrar's office, and we get a permission to file the patent. And once it is done, then what we do is that TRIC-KU has got an empaneled list of patent attorneys, and through them we connect you with the patent attorneys. Okay, so once the patent attorneys are connected, then your filing process will begin, and then there is a set of subsequent stages also which Praveen will be talking to you about, and ultimately one fine day in few months time, if you are very lucky, you can get your patent. Okay, next slide. Then this year we are also thinking about technology transfer, meaning the ones which you have not, some of you must have, like some of the works that I mentioned over here are the ones which have been applied for, granted patents have been applied, and even if you don't have a patent also, but then later you want to transfer it to a company who can further develop your product, that is also possible, but that is only possible through a mechanism in the university, and that process is referred to as technology transfer. So this year what we are looking up to is actually making the technology transfer office at TRIC so that this process can be further done. Next slide please. And this is what Dr. Gopchandran was talking to you in the morning, the 24.6 crores of funding that we have received. And the first one is actually, it is a cluster of 4 buildings. The first building is the Innovation Center. The Innovation Center is around 30,000 square feet space. And if you are deciding to start a company as a startup, or a faculty is deciding to start, to have a startup, or if a company from outside wants to actually, say for example, we can always invite. If a particular laboratory is actually working on maybe development of fuel cells, or maybe working on solar panels, and if there is a startup which is also associated with it, or if there is an industry that is also associated with it, they can actually start an office over here. Okay, so but basically this is intended for new startups. Okay, so what you can do is that you can work hand in hand with the startups, or you can have your own startups. And then for that, the space is being provided over this. So that's the innovation and translation. In a very simple way, I'm talking about this. And that is funded by KIFBI. Then we have the annual research facility. And most of you know that what we have is the university has a very small annual research facility, and that is associated with the Department of Biochemistry. But there is a limit because it can only entertain the researchers of the university. So now what we have actually thought about is that even the startups would be coming in. So when the startups are coming in, the number of applications would go more. So in order for them a specialized space we are offering, and that is the annual research facility. Then we also have an industrial area. You can see it is a low rebate. It's again 50,000 square feet. Again for those people in the physics and the optoelectronics department which can pep up their products, you can make use of the industrial area. And the last one is not funded by KIFBI, it is actually funded by PM Usha, is a translational research laboratory where you can see the microbiology facilities, the cell culture facilities, the biosafety facilities and all would be there, and then the startups can make use of these facilities. So this is, even if you move out of the university also, if you feel like you cannot go back to your own lab to further do your work, then you can always depend upon the facilities that would be made available to you through the Translation Research Center. So with this I like to thank you. And